Good afternoon, everybody. At the end of a beautiful and long week, I know you're looking forward to your weekend, but what could be a better kickoff to it than this remarkable chance to have a roundtable conversation with two remarkable people, Ray Allen and Kathy Behrens. Now, on the roundtable, as I was just explaining to our guests, welcome here, both of you. We do this, as you know, every so often, every 2-3 weeks. I have the incredible privilege and joy of speaking in this venue or other venues with leaders. Leaders from all sorts of disciplines and fields and sectors. You've seen and heard me with bankers, investment bankers, entrepreneurs, diplomats, artists, media specialists, journalists. We can go on and on and on, manufacturers even, mineral entrepreneurs, and one prime minister. But I can honestly say, I think we have never had an athlete, let alone an NBA legend. So I'm a little bit nervous, actually, to be totally honest, except you'll see that NBA legend Ray Allen is really very forthcoming and easy to talk with. And I've also never had, amazingly, although we have had people in philanthropy and areas of social enterprise, we've never had a leader for corporate social responsibility of a major global enterprise like the NBA, and that's Kathy Behrens. So this is really a very special conversation. The two of them know each other well, so we'll keep this conversation quite light, and we'll let them jump in whenever they would like. Let me just introduce each of them. As always, we'll chat a little bit for 45 minutes or so, and then we'll give you a chance to ask some questions and make some comments. We're just, again, so happy you're here and making the time. You are extremely busy people. We're so happy the MBA is here, so let's get going. So Ray was a college athlete, as some of you are, and he was a very, very successful collegiate basketball player. He played at the University of Connecticut, UConn. And when he did, he was, among other things, named the USA Basketball Male Athlete of the Year in 1995. He then declared the following year for the NBA draft, that special ritual that many of you have seen, and that's a little bit unusual if you're not American. And he was the 5th overall pick for the entire country, an amazing achievement. He has played, in the course of his career, he played for the Milwaukee Bucks, the Seattle Supersonics, the Boston Celtics. I'm really sorry, but that's my team. And so we're sorry to see you go to the Miami Heat.
I wore the green for you today, though. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And one of my sons says, you're forgiven. He told me to say that. Because at the Miami Heat, of course, extreme great accomplishments, including NBA championships. He is considered one of the greatest shooters from three-point territory. We'll talk a little bit more about that, ever to play in the NBA. He also was a 10-time NBA All-Star, selected from the entire conference, from the league. And we'll talk more about some of these records in a minute. He, in 2018, which is really at a quite young age, he was officially inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. He says he's retired, but he's an extremely busy man. As an NBA legend, he is one of the great ambassadors for the sport. We often talk about this. There are many ways of being a leader, transcending your sector and getting out into the world, and he does and has done that for and with the NBA. But he also, when he gets home, he likes to spend time with his wife and his 5 children. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Kathy has a remarkable job as well. She oversees all of the NBA's programs that coordinate this remarkable league and player social, together with player social responsibility efforts. That includes community outreach of the kind we've seen here already the past year, She promotes youth basketball development and also the growth of players in the league and their continuing education. And she was very well set up for this, I think, because she came from an extraordinary organization I know well from New York. She was the executive director of New York Cares, which is a non-profit organization that mobilizes volunteers who help people in need in this magnificent city of New York, that's also in our name, across the 5 boroughs, mobilizing them to help people in all sorts of need. And of course, a city government can never take care of everything in a city. So it has a major role. And I think it was very brilliant of the NBA commissioner to recruit her to the NBA. She has a background in government, which is of course extremely useful, serving in the administration of former New York Governor Mario Cuomo, one of the great governors of all time. She is a graduate of the University of Hartford, and today she serves as a member of the University Board of Regents. But one thing I think you all would be interested in is that she was the president of the University Student Association, and that's a big university. We have a very lively student government. What?
Ray just learned something new about me after 20 years that we've known each other.
This is why people come to us too. They learn something every day at NYU Abu Dhabi.
I'm always learning.
Yeah, exactly. She's also a trustee of the Basketball Hall of Fame that I already mentioned, and a member of the Leadership Council for Share Our Strength, about which she can say a little bit more too. She is a native of the Bronx, New York, and she currently lives with her husband and twins in Westchester County. Let's get going on our questions. But I should say, welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And let's hear it for Kathy. Now, this is really a question for both of you, and you can start and talk about it together. You have these remarkable programs we're seeing here being rolled out, like the Junior NBA. And this expands access to sports in communities of all sorts, including ones where basketball never lived or others where it's insufficiently deployed or utilized. How can access to sports, whether basketball or something else, impact a community positively, whether in Abu Dhabi or anywhere else you've seen it work? Please, maybe you want to start with that, Ray?
Well, thank you for having me. I always feel so humbled traveling so far around the world and seeing the invitation that I've received. And the NBA is such an amazing opportunity for all of us to spread basketball. To that point, and to your question, I grew up in the military. My dad was in the Air Force, and the places that I lived were funded by the Department of Defense. So I had every resource. You know, I had a youth center. I learned every single sport. So from the beginning of the season, baseball or soccer, football, basketball, and then baseball, I played them all. And it was limited at cost for my parents. So we had the best coaches in school. We had the best teachers. And so early on, you learn that every kid should have the opportunity. And, you know, as we've moved through America, you think about all the cities that kids don't have the opportunity to have access to sports. And, you know, sports is, to me, the basic fundamental building block, you know, for young people to learn how to be a part of a team. You know, and even playing individual sports, there's so many lessons to learn. And so it's so important and impactful for us to get kids to play basketball, to move, to learn, to understand how the sport can teach them. Because even when we step outside of sport, you realize that everything that we do, we're a part of a team. You know, this is a team, you know, NYU, Abu Dhabi. When you have a team here, that's your team. Your classroom is your team. Your dorm is your team. The community where you live is a team. And you just have to figure out each one of those teams, what role you play. And when you learn that, it allows you to be effective in the people around you so you can build and make your teams better. I
would just add one thing to that. First, let me also say thank you for having us. We've had a really an extraordinary week here, and have loved being on campus for practices and so many of the events. It's really been fantastic. So just really an honor to be a part of this conversation as well. I just want to, one thing that Ray talked about, or sort of the way we think about our junior NBA program, is not that we're trying to necessarily create future NBA players, but it's really in the values of sports. Basketball in particular, very team-oriented, sportsmanship, hard work, respect, how to be coachable. You know, you're all students, you have teachers, you have coaches. How well do you take coaching? That's going to be something that's going to stay with you forever. So the earlier you can learn that, the earlier you get those lessons. And the other thing that I think is really important, and we've saw it this week with some of the events that we did with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks, that I think is really important, especially given the world that we're living in now, and that's joy. And the joy that comes from both the participation in the sport, but also seeing the joy from the players. And it's something I've known Ray for a long time. We've done countless events all over the world. And just to see the energy that our players bring to these events, that's one of the reasons why we do what we do, because you're sharing something that's really going to be a lasting memory. And when you can create memories for people, you are really creating the kind of experiences that will be foundational for people in the future. And it's really special for us.
And I think to piggyback on that, when we as players, when we step into these rooms, I was at a school 2 days ago, and we received so much from that. You know, people like, oh, you have to go here. It must, you know, be tiresome. But the joy on the kids' faces when we walk in the room, like, I don't think any of the kids there knew who I was. And
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
they
a
did.
couple might have known.
Michael Jordan?
Because you had your Jordans on.
Yeah, I had Jordans on. I had a Jordan T-shirt, and they're like, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And so just to be able to sit there and, you know, it's time that you spend with the kids. What they see, they'll be.
Those are great starts. And since you began a little bit with that upbringing and reminding us of the value that the military also brings to families, that's often forgotten. And I think that was a very powerful example. Thinking more broadly, we talk a lot here about mentoring, which in a way we see these players do with these junior NBA kids, even though it's fleeting maybe. Were there mentors in your career that you say really helped you figure out how you were going to go on this basketball journey?
Yeah. Again, when you grow up on a military base, it seemed, you know, I played basketball with my dad and his friends. So I'm on this court, and I'm 12 years old, and these men are going to war. We actually, I think it was at Operation Desert Shield, when a lot of them got deployed, you know, many parts around the world. And I'm sitting here learning lessons from them, and I'm getting beat up by them, and I'm getting schooled by them. So, but most importantly, just learning the game and the lingo of basketball, and learn how to be a little tougher and hold my own. Every teacher that I had, you know, there was somebody's parent on the base. You know, you always had somebody that looked out for you. And even when I got to the NBA, you seen, you know, I broke the three-point record, and I don't even know what year it was, but
I think it was 2011.
okay, in 2011, and Reggie Miller was there, and you know, he's always been somewhat of a bigger brother to me, and a mentor. So whenever I felt like I was going through something or anything, you know, I could talk to Reggie. Yeah, I'd call him up, I'd text him. He was doing TV, so I'd see him at a game. I'd talk to him before the game. So it is important, you know, even when you're starting off in sports, when you feel, a lot of times kids run from the competition. So sometimes you see the guy who's better than you on the other side of the floor, go shoot with him. You know, find out what makes him who he is. Show up with him. We have a tendency, and kids have a tendency to kind of hide or shy away from it. So go to where the greats are. You know, learn from them. Even if you don't know them and they don't accept you at their park and then they watch from afar. That's great mentorship too from somebody sometimes you get beat up by, on the court. One of my great examples, and I had a chance to sit with him last night, was Gary Payton, because Jason Kidd used to get beat up by Gary Payton a lot, in Oakland. And Jason Kidd said, I kept coming back. I kept coming back for more. And we see kids a lot of times, if you get embarrassed or if you lose games, that kid, you'll never see him again. But Jason Kidd is a Hall of Famer because of the example of somebody like Gary Payton.
Can I just say one thing? Because here's the value of mentors. So Ray mentioned Reggie Miller, who was there when Ray broke the record. Steph Curry broke Ray's record. And who was there to greet him? Ray Allen. So your mentors teach you the things that you're going to then pay forward to other people. And I have no doubt that if somebody ever breaks Steph's record, he will follow what Reggie did and what you did. So mentors are your coaches and your teachers and your colleagues, and you think about them sometimes as these formal relationships, but it doesn't always have to be that. And so think about your teachers or your coaches and try to maintain relationships with them for the rest of your life, because you'll always be able to rely back on the things that you learned from them. And you'll find yourself doing something and say, oh, I'm doing that because that's what Reggie did. And it's also the right thing to do. That makes it why Ray did it, but it's important.
In the talk about in 2011, what I learned, Reggie taught me at that moment. I'm like, what do I do? He goes, it's your show. You get to do whatever you want. And so when Steph was walking into this moment, we had a couple conversations on the phone, and he goes, what do I do? I said, well, wise man told me you do whatever you want. This is your moment. And the fact that Reggie showed me just how to be graceful in that moment and not feel like you're taking something away from me. Like I had my time, and I enjoyed it. Now it's Steph's moment. I could sit here and say, and I told him in New York when he broke the record, I said, man, just so proud of you. Couldn't happen to a better person.
That's grace. Graciousness goes a long way. What a beautiful, beautiful lesson. Kathy, thank you for amplifying the point and bringing that forth. Tell us a little bit about your journey. You have had this utter commitment to bringing the best of what you've got, what you learned in university, into the world, in the care for others, and do so at a very significant scale at New York Cares and now in the global NBA. What led you to that? A lot of our students have, I always say we are a really utopian place. Our students don't just want to do well, although we hope they will. They also want to do good. What led you to your passion?
Well, I mean, sports, I will say it all sort of starts for me. I was played every sport as a kid. I grew up in the city, a big family, and so sports were definitely the foundation for my life. I was not a great student. I probably could have gone into NYU but I went to the University of Hartford on a scholarship to play tennis and basketball, and I realized when I was there that I felt like the world was opening up for me, which is, I think, what happens at college. And you start to meet other people and have other experiences, and it's why I think it's the most transformational experience for young people is the college experience. And so when I was at the University of Hartford, I got involved in the student government, kind of nudged on by some friends. And in my senior year, I was president of student government, and it was sort of a crash course in a lot of things, but learning how to kind of be an adult and learn how to think on my feet and learn how to work with other people and just sort of trying to find my voice. And one of the things I was really developing a passion for was just sort of community service, but also government. I really was fascinated at a young age by government and politics and current events, and So when I graduated from college, my commencement speaker was a member of Congress from Connecticut, Barbara Keneally, and I said, I want to work in government. What's your best advice for me? And she said that I should go learn how to raise money, which was not what I was expecting. And I was sort of like, okay. She said, you're going to learn a lot doing a particular skill. So go learn how to raise money. So I got a job at an organization in New York called the United Way, and it was a multi-service organization, and I basically just went out to different companies and raised money. But I really wanted to get into government, and then I did a project when I was at the United Way with the people in Governor Cuomo's office, and they asked me to join the administration, and that was another transformational experience. And I really believe in the power of government. I believe that government has an obligation to provide for its people. And so that sort of service mentality and commitment to excellence that I learned from Mario Cuomo sort of drove me to just try to figure out how to make that kind of service work part of my career. And so when I had the opportunity after a few other experiences to come to the NBA, the then Commissioner David Stern, my interview was with David and now our current Commissioner Adam Silver. And I could tell just in that instant the genuine commitment that the NBA had to service, to giving back, to understanding the platform that we had. David Stern used to say, you know, shame on us if we don't do all we can with the platform that we have. And so I think had the chance to work with guys like Ray and so many others has really just been an incredible opportunity for me, and I've learned a ton, and I've now been at the NBA for 23 years. I'm starting my 24th season, so at this point, they can't get rid of me. So,
and good for them. But let me follow up on that for a minute. So I think we live in an age where organizations and institutions we've known forever, like universities and the Congress and frankly the NBA and sports organizations, are held to much more transparent account. Our clients, those who study with us, those who work with us, want our organizations to do particularly well, and I think that's part of your remit. So how do you see, from the corporate perspective, how does the NBA position itself strategically for positive impact and being relevant? Can you talk a little bit more about how your current job makes sure of that or engages with those questions?
Yeah, I think sports, we know that sports plays a sort of outsized role in society. Whatever community you're in, sports are very sort of central to people's experiences and to bringing communities together. And in a very divided world, unfortunately, I think sports is the one common denominator for people. And, you know, Ray's experience growing up in military bases, it's like anytime he would move, and he and I have talked about this, you know, the first thing you do is like, okay, what team can I join? What sport can I play? How do I connect with people? And so sports, I think, has that, so it starts there, right? The NBA didn't make that part up, but again, it's then what's this platform? If you have that power, if sports have that power, and you have an ability to create programs and partnerships where you're teaching the game of basketball, where you're really talking about the values of respect, where you're bringing diverse communities together, where you're creating a sense of belonging, not only for the young people that we're dealing with, but for our players as well, for my colleagues at the league office. Those are the things that ultimately create your legacy. And I think one thing that, for me, that makes the NBA very special is this isn't new for us. We didn't just decide that social justice was important or that things that help the environment are things we should focus on. There's a through line in our league from, you know, generations before Ray and then Ray's generation, certainly I think the generation of players today who understand the obligation that they have to use their platform for good, and the obligation that we have to make sure that we share that, we sort of spread that that program and spread that message of the importance of creating community, of bringing people together, of trying to bridge some of the divides that exist in our world. And I think sports is just foundational to do that.
Let me ask you, Ray, since you are indeed a basketball legend, and the NBA, I think, works very effectively with its really great star players. We saw some of them on the court yesterday. You, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and others for being honored very appropriately. How do you see your work? What made you continue after retirement to work with the NBA? How do you see this as a mechanism for extending your impact in some way?
Well, the one thing, just to piggyback on what Kathy was saying, if you look around the league, we know a lot of the star players, but you see so many players in the league who have charitable organizations, have foundations. In any particular city, that's why we're so thankful for a team in a city, because you see so many activations from that player. You know, so many events that I've gone to throughout the teams that I've played for, bowling events, golf events, camps. So we're so enthralled in that city, and that basketball team is such a community resource that allows the kids to connect to who we are. And so now, as I've moved into, post-basketball, I've had the opportunity to now see the world on such a larger stage, which now we get to engage with fans that we wouldn't see on a normal basis, spending time in Asia, spending time in Europe. And growing the brand from that standpoint is one of the most amazing things that I've been able to do in my career. And to be able to do it with the legends, I know for Kathy and the NBA, a lot of times, we can't engage the players during the season, so they send us all over the world, which is so incredible for me to be able to, I've seen fans in New York and in Miami and Atlanta, but to be in Shanghai and be in Abu Dhabi, to be in so many different places, it's such an amazing feeling. And you walk with a responsibility. You walk with an accountability. I know what the league stands for. I know the respect that people hold for us around the world. So I get to be here on behalf of every NBA player, not only retired, but current, and hopefully continue to blaze a pathway forward for future basketball activities, because we just never know how much the game will grow from where we are today.
It's a very good point. And for you personally, what would you, since you have this platform, we'll talk about the source of that in a minute, but what would you like your legacy to be? If you could explain this to your kids, what would you like to be left behind, both as an athlete and a contributor to society? If you think about that.
I think my greatest legacy, we can look at highlights and pull them up. Whenever I talk to kids, when they ask me questions, and I'm sitting in the room, and I say, if you ask a question, make sure you ask a question which you can't Google. Because that's super.
Or ChatGPT.
Yeah, because when you have the opportunity, to come across anyone that you respect or admire or want to be like, there's a reason or a way that person was able to achieve what they achieved. So my greatest legacy, we'll talk about highlights and those things. Is like now when I think about, I was retired. I've been retired for 9 years. But my greatest legacy is really my children and how they move out into the world, and, the impact that they have. And that impact is going to be through how they watched me do my job. And even more so now, how I behave at home around them. So when I think about myself in my legacy, I would like for people to see, even if you're reflecting on my career, I would like people to see, what I put into it. Most people say, man, you're so incredible. Like you had this God-given ability to go out and play basketball. And Kathy will tell you, because she's been to a few of my games over the years, I was out there shooting, working every single day. And I always felt that you can't leave a stone unturned when you're going to do work, because in basketball, it's so unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. And we like to rehearse every single thing. So sometimes the randomness is actually rehearsed. And so for me, what I tried to do every single night is to rehearse my randomness. So it looks kind of, that was neat that he just, we did that. Like a shot I hit in 2013, everybody's like, did you know where you were on the court? And I was like, yes. Yeah. Because I had taken that shot at least 30 times earlier when I worked out. So when I think about my legacy, I want a young person to look at me and say, you know what, I can be what that man was, because the way he worked, the way he prepared, and he's given me the blueprint to go out and create a great life for myself.
Hard work matters. Thoughtful work.
I just want to add one thing, because the truth is there is no secret in our league about, or I think in anything, but certainly in our league, the best players are the hardest workers. And Ray's legacy, in addition to being one of the great all-time shooters and players and teammates in our league, will be as one of the hardest workers and one of the most professional. Ray comes every year now to talk to our rookies at a program we have called the Rookie Transition Program, so that his legacy is also one that we want others to learn from and follow. And the way that he carries himself still today, but carried himself as a player, the commitment to the community, the engaging with the fans, the understanding the global power of our game. Those are lessons, and so maybe they're not legacy, but Ray will leave a trail of great lessons for us to use with future players, and that's a huge benefit for us, and it's one of the reasons why we continue to ask him to travel the world for us.
And we hope you will come back frequently. All right. Ray mentioned the shot. Does everyone know the shot? All right, cue the shot, please, everybody.
Oh, cue the shot.
Should the Spurs foul? Should Miami go for the three right away? Just attack the basket. James catches, puts up a three. Won't go. Rebound, Bosch. Back out to Allen. His three-pointer. Bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining. Spurs do not have a timeout. But the officials are going to review
Keep watching
to
it
see
for a minute.
if Allen was behind the line. Chris Bosch with the huge offensive rebound.
Goosebumps every time.
Instant replay. And
Goosebumps every time.
And Mike, Tim Duncan out of the game leads to the second shot, and clearly a three-point shot.
They confirmed that it was a three, and the Spurs had a chance to talk this over.
I can never get enough of it. So many
in the
things.
building for that play. I was in 10 rows up off the court, and it was unbelievable. Like Ray just said, it gives me goosebumps every time. For me too, having been there and to know the work that Ray put in to make that shot happen. We're not supposed to have favorite teams or players, but
It's okay. You heard it here first.
I would like to.
Yeah.
Can we bring
it back one more time, please. Thank you,
I'm not
team.
being vain. I don't need to see
No,
it
I
again,
want you
'cause
to
I see
talk,
it.
and I want you to
I
talk
do.
us through it.
Yeah. So.
Can we have it without sound? Then you can talk through it, maybe.
So LeBron just hit a three before this, so he wants to shoot it again. And he's coming back.
There he comes.
And he shoots again. Okay, can we stop? So we talk about this a lot. With 8 seconds to go, it was a 3-point game. We get the rebound. I'm trying to figure out, how did Chris know to get the rebound and throw it to me? Look where I am. Like, you don't throw it to a person that's standing next to you.
Right.
But when you prepare so much, because we worked on this in shoot around, me personally in my shooting drills, to work on my feet in every scenario on the floor. So when you see me here, I've worked on that shot coming this way, and I worked on it coming this way, and worked on it backpedaling. So you kind of have a feeling where the basket is and where the three-point line is every single time. So when you practice, whether you play volleyball, soccer, lacrosse, football, you have to know your field. You got to know your court. So the fact that I was moving, movement is life. The ball finds energy. And the ball found me in that situation. I ask Chris all the time, what made you throw it to me? And then he goes, buddy, are you kidding me? Like, it wasn't going anywhere else. So,
But if they watch your back pedal here too, because that's the other thing,
Watch
is you
how
knew you were looking for it as you come over.
Let's continue the shot.
I mean, that's crazy.
and I knew I had to get back to the three-point line because, again, the best teams in the NBA know how to win. And there's three things that allow you to win basketball games: rebounds, free throws, and don't turn the ball over. You do those three things well, and you're going to be on the winning side majority of the time. But what I also want you guys to see in this picture is, if you see where the Miami Heat logo is, if you kind of, you have to kind of wince. You got to look very carefully at it. But there's a little line. Can you guys see that line? You guys know what that is? That's rope.
Ah.
And they brought the rope out because they were creating a barrier so they could celebrate the Spurs winning the championship. And this happened to me one other time. And when I played in Milwaukee, and I'm playing in Game 7 in Philly. And there was about 2.5 minutes to go in the game in Philly, and they brought the ropes out. And so at the end of the game, I was kind of pissed off at the moment because I still remember this, and it was haunting me this whole time. So that was 2001, and now we're here in 2013, so 12 years earlier. So when I seen the ropes come out, I was like, no way. So the minute I go back to the bench, I curse a little bit. And then I'm at the bench, and everybody's like, what did you say? I said, get those MF ropes out of here.
Thank you for that bleep. Can we finish the... As you keep watching it, time and again, I just wonder how anybody can walk back, really dribble backwards, basically, and do that, and shoot and not fall. Did you know you had reached behind the line? Were you confident that those feet were behind the three-point line?
Yes, because as much as everybody's looking at my feet, I'm looking at my position to the basket. Mm-hmm. So, if you see me in the beginning, when the play starts, the first thing we do to space the floor is we stand outside the three-point line. And the best offenses have great spacing. So I don't want to run over to where the ball is or to where my man is, because if I do that, my man comes. So now we clog the paint. So what we do is we teach space the floor, and if your defender falls asleep, then cut to the basket, you might have a layup. So I'm camped out on the three-point line, and what I've gotten used to doing over my career is I'm standing there, and I make my defender feel like I'm going to stand there the whole time. So the minute I'm just standing there, what he does is a defender goes from being in this position, and the ball's over there, and he looks at me, and he takes a check. And you'll see this in the game tomorrow. They check, you look, you check, and the minute they're bent, and then you think I'm there, they go. The minute they do that, they're done. Mm-hmm. You stand up, and that's when I cut. And he's looking that way, and then he goes look back, and then all of a sudden it's another bleep moment. And that's kind of basketball and as a shooter. So at the end of the game, when people see me get open, they're always like, how did he get open? And that's because movement is life. It's everything.
movement is life. Preparation, there's no winning really without preparation, is what you're hearing here very clearly. This is wonderful. Let's see, totally different register of impact. This was such a great example. Now, scaling up legacy to the NBA as a whole, since that's what really, in many ways, you are such an important part of that, Kathy, of that whole social impact part. I am often asked here all the time, and every leader of an organization would be, how do you know that you're succeeding? What measures of success can you point to? How do you, as the leader for corporate social responsibility who pulls this all together, what metrics or stories stand out to you when you talk about the NBA's impact in concrete terms?
Yeah, I think there are a couple things. I mean, certainly one of the other aspects that I think has made our work in this space really successful is that we think of it as a part of the business imperative that we have. It's not just a sort of nice thing that we do. It's truly ingrained in our culture, and truly ingrained into our approach for business. And so the success has to be measured and tracked, and so we have a couple of things that we use. Part of its participation, how many kids are playing, how many events are we doing that engage kids in learning the game of basketball, or how many coaches are we helping to certify so that they can coach and train more kids. We have a big focus at the NBA. We have since we launched our NBA Cares program in 2008. And that's creating legacy projects. Ray's been a part, many events that Ray has been a part of, where we go and build new basketball courts or create new places where kids can learn, play. In some cases, we've done homes following disasters, so something that we did in the United States in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. So creating places where kids and families can live, learn, or play is a big part of one of our real metrics of success. And we have created over 2,000 of those kinds of places, and more to come all over the world. And then I would say the other part is just sort of the volunteer nature of what we do is rolling up our sleeves and getting our hands dirty, and we're very focused on programs that impact education, that impact overall health and wellness, and then that really help drive making communities stronger and safer. So we've got lots of metrics there, but ultimately this is really about making sure people see our brand and our players for who they are, and for the kinds of this is it goes back to what we were talking about the power of sports. When you're a fan, when you look at Ray, we want you to appreciate what Ray does on the court, but we also want you to respect who he is and what he does off the court as well. So the perception of our players and the perception of our brand is really at the heart of, I think, what makes the NBA so successful, because we've got such a great group of current and former players who grow the game, who care about the game, who are passionate about the game, who work incredibly hard, but who also understand that giving back to the community and making their community stronger, using their ability to bring people together for common purpose is really what we're about.
I'd like to answer that from a player perspective. We always say the highs are not high enough and the lows are too low. Any particular week, you could play potentially 4 games, and you could lose all 4, and you could win all 4. And if you win all 4 one week, you could lose all 4 the next week. And typically the schedule is not as drastic as that, but the point is, it happens so fast. Unlike football, you have to wait the next week. We self-correct over and over again. So we don't allow ourselves to look at our wins. It's not you see guys walk off the court, and we're not like patting ourselves on the back all the time. We're not sitting here celebrating as much, maybe as we probably could do a little more of it, because we know there's always room for growth. You get too comfortable in the space that we sit in. We know we play again tomorrow night, or we know we're not the best in our division or the best in our conference. And so it's a constant for us, yes, I scored 40 tonight, but I have to do everything all over again tomorrow if I want to be successful. So it breeds a sense of insecurity we have, because you just don't think that you're good enough while you're there, because somebody's always shooting for you or trying to take you down. We have such a huge target, every night that you play. So success for us is hoisting a trophy at the end of the year, winning your division. You get to celebrate a little bit All-Star Weekend, and we're looking at our opponents All-Star Weekend, and we're celebrating each other and able to talk. But the minute it's over with, we're like, all right, I'm gonna see you on Tuesday, and we're gonna kick your butts.
It's very helpful, Ray, really to hear both of you talk about the impact and why how players protecting the world is important to the brand and also important to the overall societal impact. It's all ultimately built out of all these little building blocks of all the people who people the game. The game is about people in the end. Obviously, Ray, you held that remarkable record, I think, for 11 years of the most three-pointer shots of all time in the NBA. An astonishing total of 2,973 three-pointer shots. Obviously, by that, I would say you actually had an enormous impact on the game itself. The advent of the three-point shot and how dominant it really is to success. There really seems to be a very clear correlation between a long-term team success and the three-pointer, the ability of teams to muster three-point shots. Now, what does the future of the game look like to you? If you could have a crystal ball, is this up and away with the three-pointer shots, or is the game also changing in ways that you see as the NBA has been going a little global?
Well, I think it's kind of like style. When I first got into the NBA, I would say before, when I was watching it, everybody wore these little shorts, these little tight shorts. I think Michael Jordan changed that. He started wearing baggy shorts, and everybody's like, I have to have baggy shorts. It was Michael Jordan and the Michigan Fab Five. You guys are my era. You guys understand. You remember the whole culture. And then in the 90s, pants. Guys start wearing pants all the way down past their knees, and so I think the game will start to do the same thing, because right now there's a hole in the middle. And, so you got the three-point line. You see so many people shooting threes. But what's going to happen, and I always say it takes, with Denver, and I was so impressed with Denver winning the championship. But Denver, the way they played and the way with having Jokic on the floor, because to me it was either Jokic or Embiid that was going to set the NBA in a different direction, because they are big. And we went away from bigs, in the last, 8 to 10 years. And so what I think is going to happen is now teams have to start recruiting big men again to guard Jokic, to guard Embiid, that can play with their back to the basket, that can score. So I think it's going to reverse itself back to where we were in the 90s, because now the kids growing up, if they don't shoot the ball really well, and they still have great post moves and they're working on that, teams are going to see that still is of value. Being able to score, guys on the block in the NBA, they're scoring 60 to 65% most nights. And so when you have a guy that can score like that, you can get a bucket in the fourth quarter easily, 65%, I'm going with those odds over threes if I'm coaching, because ultimately when you see the game in the fourth quarter, it slows down a lot. And it's about who can get you a bucket, and I think that's what's going to revert back to.
Well, that's really going to help us all watch these games a little bit more in a more informed way. Thank you very much for really explaining why the Wolves won yesterday. Yeah. Pretty big guys, you know, that was interesting. Listen, I've taken far too much of the privilege of asking the questions. I want to go to our audience. We have mics. Please wait for the mic to speak. Please keep your questions short and limited to one here in the front.
First off, Ray, I just want to thank you for your time. We really appreciate you coming out and talk to us. The question I have is, like, what are your thoughts on player empowerment? And do you think it's too far gone with James Harden requesting 3 trades within like the last 4 years or so? And on the front as well, with Damian Lillard being so loyal to the Blazers and being unable to go to the destination that he really chooses, do you like, what are your thoughts on that? And I just wanted to ask. Well,
I love the relationship the players have with the teams, the relationship they have with the league. It's such we're at a place where, and I think we see it and hear it more because of social media, because we had these same issues in the 90s. We just didn't have the microphones and the megaphones to kind of voice, you know, kind of how we felt. So you may be following Damian Lillard, so you kind of feel what he's saying and you kind of get a sense of who he is. And that's the beautiful thing about basketball, because we're so connected, you to the player and the player to the fan. And so I just appreciate that so much about the players being able to use their voice. In the same token, we got to make sure, you know, with owners or even general managers, you know, it's there. A lot of times GMs look at the players as chess pieces, you know, figuring out, okay, well, can I get this guy and how can I move around? So you kind of get to see it firsthand. And also you get that from 2K because you can move players around on the board. So it is a ever evolving opportunity and platform, and you see it happen live.
But I think Dame's pretty happy in where he is.
Yes.
Thank you.
In the front here. I will move to the back too, don't worry. But we're going to go left to right, left to right. Yeah.
Hi, I just have a question. How do you consistently perform under pressure and in moments of self-doubt? Like, what are the steps that you take to kind of to empower yourself with the confidence that you have?
Well, I've had a lot of self-doubt. Let me correct myself. I didn't have self-doubt because I knew what I could do. And the thing is I know how to shoot free throws. I know how to shoot threes. I understand the game from top to bottom. So it is about performing at that moment, you know, doing the things that you hope that you can do, the things the coach wants you to do, being able to make a shot. We turn the TV on and you see, whether it's football, baseball, whatever sport, and you see a guy perform his task like you expect him to do, and he does it over and over again. There's a pressure, I think, externally. So if we watch a basketball game and we're looking at a guy shoot a free throw and you see all these people around looking, and you're like, wow, how does he do that? How do we do that? How I did it was, what I would do is I would superimpose myself while I'm practicing into a game environment in my head. Does that make sense? And then when I got into the game, I would superimpose myself back into that practice environment. So how do you perform under pressure or put yourself in pressure in a non-game environment? So when you get there, you're comfortable with it. So it really is finding a way to familiarize yourself with that stress. Free throw, for example, have you ever sat in front of the TV and seen a guy, you know how much money he makes, and you say, and raise your hand if you've done this, oh, look how much money he makes, he missed a free throw? Well, a free throw is not as simple as we see it from the eye because it's so emotional. You know, think about it. You got knocked down. You didn't come in the game when you wanted to. You don't have as many points as you like. You don't have any points. You're in an argument with the coach. There's an emotional attachment to a free throw that if you don't know how to separate your emotions from that free throw, most likely you're going to miss. So what I do is I take that emotional pressure and I accept it. I suck right now, or I won't say I suck because I'm always kind to myself. I'm not playing well. I missed my last shot. We're down. You accept all that in the game, and then once you get to the moment where you have to perform, you have to let it go. Because if you hold on to it, then you're going to, it's like shooting a free throw. If I breathe, and then you think about your heart is racing so fast and you have to shoot a free throw, and now you can't even you can't locate your hand because it's shaking so much. So what I do is I take all that I respect and then breathe it out and let it go, and then go back to that moment when I was on the court by myself, just me and the hoop, all net.
And he has 15 seconds to do that.
Yeah.
So that's the added pressure.
Right here in
of
the front. Yeah, well, I see you.
Thank you very much for coming here today. My question is, it seems to me that most of the people, they know the recipe for success. It's like being hard worker, it's dedication, it's consistency, it's doing things when you don't feel like doing them. But when it comes to actually doing those things, most of the people fail. So I think the key is somewhere here. And my question to you is, what do you think has to be changed? Is it just the idea of always bettering yourself? Or is it something else that makes you wake up every day and choose to do those things, no matter how you feel?
So when you say something just to kind of form your questions, you say something has to change. What is the question exactly?
Yeah, like, what should be changed in your mind at some point? I know that this is a process. It's not just it happens like at one point. But what has to be changed in that process so you would have that power to overcome all those mental obstacles in your head?
Well, I think, and the kid asked me this yesterday, when you're working on whatever it is that you're doing, you know, if I'm working on my jump shot today, and I'm expecting to be great tomorrow, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, you don't just become a great shooter because you worked out extremely hard today. You don't become a great athlete or strong because you lifted weights today. I like to call it stacking days. So you continue, you do it today, you do it tomorrow, you do it the next day, and you continue to do it over and over again. And then before you know it, your body knows nothing else. So when you step onto the field of play and people look at you, they watch how you move, they watch, you know, how you perform the game itself, you look different. And you see it with a certain athlete, you're like, wow, this guy looks different. And he looks different because, as Kathy said earlier, these guys are working extremely hard and they're doing it every single day. So if there's any question that you have, and I always say this, one, if you get to the end of your rope in anything, just tie a knot and hang on. But most people who are experts are just people that didn't give up.
I just want to add one thing to that, because I think, you know, certainly for more of the young people in the room, like, you're going to have failure. And no matter how hard you work or how good at something you are, failure is just as inevitable as success is. And so luck, nice to be lucky. Luck is out there, and you know, that's part of it too. But you're going to have to learn how to deal with failure. I think it's something that when we talk about sports, you know, winning right and losing right are, you know, it's a pretty fine line. And so that's you know, you're not going to win everything, no matter how hard you prepare or how good at something you are. And so getting yourself not used to, because nobody does get used to losing, but how do you handle it? How do you bounce back from it? How do you, and this is, by the way, still at work, because you'll have an idea that someone will say, oh, no, not that idea, we're going to go on to another idea, or, you know, somebody doesn't think you were right about something, or you have a project that didn't work out so well. Like, that's like fundamental for the rest of your life. You're going to have some great success, and you're going to have some failures. You have to be able to, in your mind, figure out how to learn from both of them, and you should start now.
Most of the teams that I played on, when we lost, we talked more because we had to figure out what went wrong. And when you win, what does everybody do? You go celebrate. Most people have fun. You forget about whatever it is that you're doing. If you were great in practice, and I think the trap is when you did well, you think you don't have to work anymore. I don't have to shoot tomorrow. I scored 30 tonight. But the opposite happens. You now are expected to do that more, so you have to continue to work out you become a maniac because you want the same success.
And you want to avoid becoming a maniac. So we work a lot on health and wellness, as I know all of you in the league really emphasize, which is important. I think the questions have mostly come from men, if I'm not mistaken. We're very careful about gendering around here. But if some women have questions, can I see some hands?
Yeah, one right
there.
there.
Right there. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just stay seated. So I basically was wondering, from your point of view, how you've seen your legacy impact the African American community. I know, from my point of view, right, I have friends who have a Ray Allen poster and they'd wake up and it inspired them every single day. So from you and what you've seen from your legacy, how has it impacted the African American community?
It's been amazing. I've been fortunate to have this platform. So my foundation, it's called the Ray of Hope Foundation, and we've been able to. The great thing about a foundation is it gives us a charitable arm to maneuver through communities and have great impacts. Raise money, and I've been able to build computer labs in inner city schools, program schools that don't have access to technology. And unfortunately, it's vast throughout the Miami. You see it a lot. And I have the opportunity to walk into schools and have deep conversations with young people. And they see me as a basketball player when they walk in. And we put pictures on the walls. We want inspiration to be around them. It's always an average of 30 computers. We do paint the whole classroom, new desks, new computers. And so we give them USB ports to plug into their computers. And this technology that they don't have otherwise. And so when they're coming to meet an athlete, a basketball player, they come out realizing that this is somebody who's just helped us, encouraged us to get smarter, to learn, to want to travel. And I think that's the beautiful thing about what I've been able to do with basketball is basketball is so magical. It's taken me all over the world, obviously. And so in the African American community, it's been such an honor for me to be able to walk and see a young black kid who I once was in that position, and then to be able to talk to them and encourage them. And they're looking at me, with stars in their eyes, and just to be able to have the conversation and say, you too can be in this position. Speaking to adversity, it's going to come in your direction, regardless of what level you get to. And with a lot of kids, a lot of the young black kids that I see, I always remind them that wherever you come from, remember that and let it inspire you to kind of push yourself and go forward. So just having this platform gives me that opportunity to have that conversation with the young black men in the community and just continue to keep them focused and inspired to achieve great things.
Thank you.
Others here in the front, and I'll come back to this side too. Please, a few more questions.
Good evening. It's an honor to have you guys both here, Kathy and Ray. Ray, you mentioned the importance of family, and you emphasized the value that players actually put into their cities and community building. And to relate that to the recent message that Lauren Holiday, had penned about her husband, Drew, being traded. How do you feel like the Players Association or the league has a responsibility to actually protect these communities and families, because the smallest unit is the family, and they do have an overall impact more than the viewership and numbers that maybe some of the owners, you know, emphasize more?
You know, great question. I loved her letter. You could tell that she was hurt.
Can you explain this a little? Not everyone
Okay,
here knows
okay.
this, I think.
So Drew Holiday was just traded to Portland, and now he's in Boston. And what happens in a trade is we get moved around, you know, and you're like, oh, he's going here and I'm at that. But we have kids in school, they have friends. You're so connected, and you have to be in order to be happy. You can't just come and play basketball. And I think he really entrenched himself in the Milwaukee community. And obviously winning a championship, you feel so great and inspired about the place. And you just learn quickly that you have the opportunity to play somewhere else and make that place great. And I do think that the leagues do, or the teams protect the players, and it is family oriented, but we have to always remember that it is a business. You know, you have to focus on everything you can, and you got to give everything. And I wanted to make sure it was my priority to make sure that wherever I played, I was there. You know, my family was there. We enjoyed ourselves. We just kind of had 10 toes and 10 hands in, 10 fingers in every single step of the way. And it is heartbreaking when you have to deal with such situations when there is a trade, but don't let that jade you and make you feel like you can't in his next situation, because now Boston is ready for him. You know, they're arms wide open for Drew, and I think he'll be successful there. And that's all it is. It's like I have to say this because this is how I feel, and I'm hurt. But I got traded from Milwaukee to Seattle, and I was hurt, but I also was excited about going to Seattle as well.
I agree with you that the Celtics are welcoming Drew with open arms, and his family too. With that, let's go to Levent over there, in the middle there. Thank you. No need to run. No need to run. It's okay.
This must be the coach.
Hey. Yeah, I have a question, but I'm just going to start with a quote first. It says, "Basketball is like poetry in motion."
Oh, who said that?
You dribble, you cross the guy to the left, take him back to right. He's falling back, then just a J in his face and say, "What?"
What?
Yeah. Said, yeah, Jesus Shuttlesworth, right? That young fella, that young, really talented fella. I mean, we know you work with greats on the court. You played against them, you played with them, but you also worked some greats like Denzel and Spike Lee off the court. And it's a quote from a movie back 98, right? 98 called He Got Game. And yours truly was the Jesus Shuttlesworth. I think it was the end of your rookie year, right? But that movie touched a lot of really good areas in terms of basketball and how basketball make an impact in individuals, but as well as the community, right? So, and fast forwarding like 2-3 more decades, now we are here from 98 to 23. And how do you see, both to you, Ray, and both of you, how do we see the NBA, while the game is becoming so much global and competitive and attractive, but what can be done more to protect the pureness of the game, if that makes any sense? Like then, just to be a little more clear, maybe just to emphasize, AAU and the shoe companies and so on and so forth, right? You know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, and you know, we talk about AAU all the time. And now we have, in America, we have OTE, so you're talking about NIL. The landscape has changed considerably in sports. And so it's hard to say where it's going to go. I think that the NBA is in such a great place right now, and you see the growth of the game all over the world. And just think about Australia and how many players from Australia are in the NBA, and how Canada is dominant on the world stage, and Germany is emerging on the scene. So we have players coming from all over the globe because of the success of the NBA. You can also almost make the argument when you look at the NBA in America, or actually the players in America, like we're losing ground, to the rest of the world. And so that is something that we, in America have to focus on, and making sure more, you doing more camps, grassroots opportunities. The Players Association has a camp every year in Orlando where they highlight the top 100 high school student players. So endeavors like that are opportunities to make sure we stay connected to the players. When you have the top 100 camp, there's also, you have classwork. We have speakers. You speak to the parents. So there are a lot of camps throughout America where you actually have meetings when the kids are in camp with the parents, so we can educate them on procedures going forward. So this thing it's like, we've seen the nasty underbelly of sports, but we want to make sure that we educate the whole family, because coaches now in high school or in college, they're recruiting the stands a lot of times. So if you see a good player on the floor, you're paying attention to the mom or dad in the stands, and you're trying to say to themselves, do I really want this parent in my program? It's no longer just a kid anymore. So it is an all-encompassing endeavor to make sure the education of the game going forward, because even if you don't make it in college or say to the league, playing in college, there's so many other entities. When you see the NBA and everybody around the Abu Dhabi games, think about, you don't see game operations, seeing all the equipment managers and the people that make this game what it is. So we have so much to be proud of and thankful for. I think we're heading in an incredible direction, but there are things that we have to just pay attention to and just keep people educated on, and make sure we catch these kids at a young age so they can avoid the pitfalls that may befall them throughout their careers, or even early in their careers.
Kathy, I would just add,
may I steer it in a particular direction that I've actually been eager to ask, and then also please say whatever you wanted to expand on. Kathy, the growth of the NBA actually is what I wanted to say something about, and the growth of basketball in its slipstream. There are, of course, other basketball organizations in the world, and they've been around, but the NBA going global is obviously a really big deal for China. It's a big deal for Africa, for Europe, and now, inshallah, for the Middle East, North Africa. So there is something like, by various counts, 2.2 billion people who are fans of basketball, and some 400 million of them seem to be playing the game at some sort of level in the world. That's a very high ratio, actually, of people playing to fans, higher than most other sports. But that's so powerful for health when you think about it. So I was wondering if part of the impact of the NBA, apart from all these social goods that you have described very powerfully, how do you can get more people from watching it and being excited fans and playing even esports to maybe those who are able to, getting them moving? Is that part of the remit?
It absolutely is. And I was going to say a couple of things about that. I mean, certainly for us at the league office, and when I say the league office, I want to remind everybody, of course, that we have the WNBA as well, because we've got the best women basketball players in the world playing in the WNBA, getting ready for what I think will be an epic finals between the Las Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty. So that starts Sunday. Don't miss watching that if you can. It is going to be great basketball. And I just want to, the piece about sort of the value, one of the values of the game is that healthy lifestyle that comes from when you're living an active and healthy life. And so it's not when we talk about trying to grow the game of basketball, it's not so we can find another 20 million. There's only 450 NBA jobs, 450 players in the NBA, 140, I think, in the WNBA. That is the best of the best. So if you are in the NBA, you are one of the top 450 basketball players in the world. There are thousands of other jobs and opportunities, and so it's an extraordinary infrastructure that makes the league run, but there's also the opportunity to just learn to enjoy the game, continue to play it from a, living that active and healthy lifestyle that we're also very focused on. And I think also Ray talked about the work that we do to help the best young players, and we've got programs for that reach those best players too on a global basis. And so you look at the playing field, playing court in this case, and there's just tremendous opportunity to continue to grow the game, to identify talent, but to make sure that talent is getting the best possible preparation, and that's on and off the court. And just to the comment about Drew and Lauren Holiday, one of the most important things that we want to stress too is the relationships that we try to build with players and family members, and there's always could be better communication. I think clearly in that instance that was probably the case, but I know that part of the relationships that we all get to experience, that the foundation for that is respect, and I know certainly that there was great respect for Drew and Lauren in Milwaukee, and I think he's going to do great in Boston, and looking forward to seeing that team.
Our guests have been super generous with their time. We'll take one more question. Let's see who has a really burning question. And I'm scanning, I'm scanning, and I'm still scanning, and I just can't see well enough. Would men please lower their hands for a minute? What's left? Come on, ladies. There we go. Maybe we'll have one more. Okay.
Thank you so much for your time. You have been generous, and thank you for coming to Abu Dhabi and NYU Abu Dhabi. My question is for Kathy. With regards to the global reach of the NBA, what is the reach and where can we find that information, particularly for the African continent? Are you working directly with certain organizations? For here in Abu Dhabi, the advertisement was phenomenal. It was everywhere. We got the information. You know where to go. You know where to hear speakers like yourselves come on here. But for the African continent, I just wanted to know where the information can be found, if there is the reach for mentorship programs and things like that.
Yeah, so we're very proud of the work that we've done in Africa. We have an office, NBA Africa is based in Johannesburg, but we also have offices throughout the continent. In Senegal, we have, during the pandemic, we launched the Basketball Africa League, which is was definitely impacted by the pandemic, but is a great opportunity to continue to grow the game on the continent. Some of my best experiences that I've had at the NBA have been our Basketball Without Borders program that we have done in Africa. I think there's tremendous growth there. Ray talked about the legacy of players in our league. The number of players with ties to the African continent is extraordinary, and so our commitment to making sure that we're growing the game, that we're trying to help with the infrastructure. I think that's one of the things that continues to be a challenge, is to make sure that there are places where the game can be played and enjoyed. And so we're really excited about the potential for the Basketball Africa League, and the talent's extraordinary there, and the interest level. And so if you're, I think the message I'm getting from you is we have to do more to make sure people know about it. Note taken, and we'll do that.
And I'll just say, I spent time in Morocco in that same vein with NBA Africa, and I think it's starting. In May, I was in India, and it's like we're branching, you know, throughout the world to touch so many different markets that we know that we would love to be in. You know, people who love basketball. And certainly Africa for me is a place that I want to spend more time in. And I know with the office that we have in South Africa, I think a lot of things will happen here the next decade for sure, where we'll have a lot more boots on the ground to make sure, because there's so many talented players coming out of Africa.
Thank you very much. I saw that burning question. I've been looking at you for a while. There we go. Last question. Make it good.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you, Kathy, for the wonderful talk. So I would like to ask Ray about some crazy fan moments that you had. Are there any memorable ones that you would like to share with all of us here?
There's no crazy fans.
Crazy good fans. Crazy good fan moments.
Yeah, well, I just have nothing but positive interactions with fans. I've just been amazed. I did a camp in Beijing back in 2015, and I was there for 14 days. And when I get to the airport, and this was, you know, it was a 17-hour flight, and when I get into the airport and the guy's waiting on me, and there's so many people at the airport, and you know, when you come out of the baggage claim, you turn a corner, and all of a sudden there's at least 50 or 60 people sitting there waiting. And you know, I'm just kind of regular old me, and they're all waiting for me, and I couldn't believe it. And I was blown away. I seen jerseys, I seen shoes, I seen shoes that I wore in the game. So I get on the bus, the little van to take me to where I'm staying, and there's this young lady, and she's standing in front of the van, and she's crying like she lost something. And I asked the guy, the organizer, and I said, there's something wrong with this young lady. I was like, do you know her? He goes, yeah, she works with us. And I said, why is she crying? He goes, because she's so happy you're here. Wow. She traveled 15 hours by train standing up. Wow. And I was like, what? Like, I looked around and I said, I think my dog loves me like that. Yeah. But just to see the love and the passion that they have, that the people in China had for me when I was there was incredible. And so what it does is it inspires you to do right by them and continue to go back. And it's the same thing here in Abu Dhabi.
Thank you so much, Ray. Everyone. Thank you for your great engagements and your great questions. And please, above all, thank you, Kathy Behrens. Thank you, Ray Allen. Please thank our wonderful guests.